Tonight, Canada strikes gold on the track in Paris with a stunning victory in the men's relay. A magical moment for Andre de Grasse.
The rounds missed in finals and chasing after medals gives them some fresh legs for the relay, and they got a gold now.
And a dramatic Olympic run ends with silver for women's beach volleyball.
Super exciting to know that we might have a real showing and upcoming program that can be strengthened by this finish.
A passenger plane crashes in Brazil. Dozens are killed as the aircraft goes down in a residential area.
The water kept coming up, kept coming up, kept coming up.
Flash flooding hits parts of Ontario and Quebec as Debbie blows through. Plus, the soft job market hardens opinions on the Bank of Canada's next move. And a burst of creative energy hits St. John's.
Having the space for them to showcase their designs, I think it's really important.
Fashion front and center as designers and models strut their stuff on home turf.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. Canada owned the podium today, winning gold, silver, and bronze in separate events, tying its best ever performance at a Summer Olympics with 24 medals. Today's golden moment in the men's 4x100 relay, redemption for Andre de Grasse after failing to reach the podium in his other events. With support from his team, this race takes him into the record books, earning his 7th career medal to tie swimmer Penny Oleksiak as Canada's most decorated Olympian. It was sheer disappointment for the Americans without star Noah Lyles, who was out with COVID. The squad botched the baton pass and was disqualified. CTV's Scott Hurst on today's Olympic glory.
An inspiring run for Team Canada. Gold in the men's 4x100-meter relay in a time of 37:50 to beat South Africa and Great Britain to the finish line. The team of Aaron Brown, Jerome Blake, Brendan Rodney, and Andre de Grasse sprinting their way to the top of the podium in rainy conditions. This is Canada's 5th Olympic medal all-time in the men's 4x100. On the beach, the Canadian pair of Melissa Jimena Paredes and Brandy Wilkerson have claimed a silver medal. They lost the gold medal match late this afternoon to the Brazilians, but it is still the best ever result for Canadian women at the Olympics in beach volleyball. A photo finish on the water with Canada claiming bronze. The duo of Katie Vincent and Sloane McKenzie paddling their way to the podium in the women's double 500-meter canoe sprint. More proof Canada is making waves on the Olympic stage in many different sports.
We're not only good like in one event here, one event there, it's the global thing.
From 4 medals for Summer McIntosh to a hammer throw sweep, it's all adding to a medal count that is on track to be our best ever outside of a boycotted games.
So far, I'm very happy. Like I said at the beginning, I thought that was the best team ever. And from what I saw so far, it's what I expected.
And as the old saying goes, better late than never. That's the case for London 2012 high jump medalist Derek Drouin.
I'm thankful that the IOC offered an opportunity like this for the medalists who were wronged by doping in the sport.
In a ceremony today, the Canadian had his bronze upgraded to silver after a Russian athlete was stripped of gold for a doping violation. Heading into the final weekend of Paris 2024, there are still several chances for Canadian athletes to reach the podium, including men's breakdancing tomorrow, where Canada is a medal hopeful, Heather.
All right, Scott, thanks. Turning now to a devastating plane crash in Brazil that killed all 61 people on board. The aircraft plummeting into a residential area. Canada will send a Transportation Safety Board representative to help investigate the cause of the crash. CTV's Kamal Karamali reports.
The moment a passenger plane spirals to the ground, a straight drop plummeting 5,000 meters in under a minute. I saw it fall on a couple's roof, says this witness. The plane now a mangled mess of aluminum and steel, its final resting place not far from its intended destination of Sao Paulo, Brazil. All 57 passengers and 4 crew members on board killed, according to the airline. Witnesses say they saw bodies burning, while local police have already identified some of the deceased on board. A small local airline company, Vopass Flight 2283, left Cascavel just before noon. It's usually a short flight, less than 2 hours, to Sao Paulo, but around 1:22 the plane lost signal, just north of its destination, crashing in the rural area of Venedo.
There was a fluctuation in airspeed, and there was a little bit of a fluctuation in altitude. And then from the radar site and from the telemetry data that I can see, the airplane stopped flying.
Today, Brazil's president called for a minute of silence to mark the deaths of the flight's passengers and crew. Incredibly, no one on the ground was injured. Local authorities have recovered the black box from the crash site. Now an investigation begins into what went wrong. Plenty of unknowns at this point, but one thing investigators do know is that the aircraft crew had not communicated any sort of emergency before the crash. Heather.
Heartbreaking for so many families. Como thanks. A harrowing scene in a Newfoundland community has led to impaired driving charges.
Oh my God, I can't believe he's alive.
Witnesses say a speeding SUV narrowly missed other vehicles before hitting a curb, flipping, and then bursting into flames. The 30-year-old driver was pulled from the fiery crash by another motorist. He suffered minor injuries and is facing a number of charges, including impaired driving and assaulting a police officer. Nearly 500,000 households across Quebec are without power as remnants of Debbie roll through eastern Canada.
The water kept coming up, kept coming up, kept coming up, and the water overflowed. These sandbags here that you see here overflowed.
Heavy rain caused flooding and knocked out power to 65,000 homes in the Montreal area alone, with upwards of 120 millimeters of rain in the forecast. People in Ottawa also dealing with pooling water and torrential downpours.
We have 2 backflow valves in now, so we'll probably find that out today, whether it holds or not.
Special weather statements and rainfall warnings are in place for parts of Ontario, Quebec, and into New Brunswick. Atlantic Canada is bracing for messy weather as the storm moves east. We're learning more about the young firefighter who was killed last week battling an out-of-control wildfire in Jasper National Park. Family and friends say 24-year-old Morgan Kitchen loved his job and cared deeply about others. His death leaves a deep scar in the community of Jasper, already reeling after fire destroyed part of the town. CTV's Kathy Lee has the reaction.
Bold, brilliant personality with a nimble wit. Just a few of many unforgettable ways family and friends remember Morgan Kitchen. The 24-year-old Calgarian died while battling the wildfires in Jasper National Park. His life cut short after a falling tree hit him.
Morgan died doing what he loved, in the place that he loved, with people he loved. He wanted nothing more than to be in community with other courageous and committed people doing meaningful work. We're grateful to his crew for their care following his injury and for the support of the entire Alberta wildfire community.
Nothing I can say will make his loss any easier to his family, community, or those who are with him on the front lines. But I hope those closest to him know he gave his life doing something he knew was important.
Firefighters and first responders paying tribute to Kitchen, who was based in Rocky Mountain House. He served in the Canadian Armed Forces and British Royal Marines. Outside of work, he was a talented athlete, musician, singer, comedian, and actor.
We're comforted knowing he brought joy and laughter to the many people who called him friend.
As for the wildfire in Jasper, it remains active and out of control.
It is still too early to say the wildfire is no longer a danger to the community.
The focus, resuming critical services in the town to support residents when they return. Portions of Highway 93 opened near the Columbia ice fields, as did Highway 16 through the national park, but drivers aren't allowed to stop or exit off the highway.
However, the town of Jasper remains closed. Peace officers are patrolling the area. As for Morgan Kitchen, a funeral service is scheduled for August 17th. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
It seems Canada is facing a stalled summer economy. According to StatsCan, 2,800 jobs were lost in July, bringing down the employment rate by 0.2%. But those losses could lead to another rate cut by the Bank of Canada this fall. CTV's Adrian Gabriel has been digging into the data.
There was a glimmer of optimism today for some, even as gray clouds blanketed Toronto's financial district.
My immediate reaction was that it was weak, but my secondary reaction is that the number's actually better than it looks.
That's because while the country lost more than 64,000 part-time jobs, the number of full-time positions actually increased by about 62,000.
For us in our sector, that is a huge, huge positive because you get temporary workers or contract workers who are now offered full-time jobs.
However, the squeeze on part-time gigs has put new immigrants and students on the receiving end of Canada's latest job dip.
This has been a terrible summer for summer jobs for university students. Barely half of them found a job this summer.
The rate of employment remains at a 30-month high of 6.4%. Across the country, the number of unemployed fluctuates. Vancouver sits at nearly 6%, Edmonton 8%, Regina 6.6%, Toronto 7.7%, Quebec City 3.8%, with Halifax at 5.8%.
This is emblematic of an economy that's losing steam, that is slowing down.
For everyday Canadians feeling the interest rate squeeze, today's job report is expected to propel the Bank of Canada to cut rates for a third consecutive cycle on September 4th.
We need several rate cuts, and we need them quick. Now it looks like the U.S. economy is also slowing down, so we're likely to see rate cuts south of the border. So I want to see the Bank of Canada moving quickly and strongly at every one of its next meetings.
Canadian governments have in part been propping up the job numbers. 41,000 public sector positions have been added. It's a trend that economists say simply isn't sustainable. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
The RCMP is interviewing witnesses for its criminal investigation into the Ontario government's Greenbelt scandal.
We have nothing to hide. You know, come in, do whatever you have to do, and eventually we're moving on.
Ford's office says interviews are underway with current and former staffers. This follows the now reversed plans by the province to build 50,000 new homes on protected Greenbelt lands. Ontario's Auditor General found that some developers may have received preferential treatment. Two cabinet ministers resigned over the Greenbelt controversy. The federal Conservative leader is backing industry leaders in demanding the Prime Minister slap tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, steel, aluminum, and critical minerals, a move the Liberals signaled is coming. CTV's Rachel Aiello reports.
Backed by steelworkers, whose jobs he fears Liberal inaction is putting on the line, Poilievre called out China for flooding the market with cheap goods.
They're doing this with the goal of crushing our steel, our aluminum.
The Conservative leader wants the federal government to align with the Americans and introduce import tariffs of 100% on made-in-China EVs, 50% on semiconductors and solar cells, and 25% on steel, aluminum, and other critical minerals. He also wants Canada to block Chinese EVs from being eligible for tax rebates. Poilievre's proposed tariff package echoes a call made yesterday by leaders in Canada's steel and aluminum industries.
Frankly, in our view, doing nothing is not an option.
There are concerns Canada could become a dumping ground now that the U.S. and Mexico have taken trade action against China.
The period of the coming weeks is crucial for Canada to take a stand on this.
The feds launched a 30-day consultation period in July to evaluate EV supply chain tariffs. After hearing from hundreds of stakeholders, Ottawa has yet to reveal its plan. In a statement to CTV News, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland's office said it agrees action is necessary, but called it rich for Poilievre to chime in now. They indicated the government will have more to say soon. Experts warn Canada has no choice but to quickly move in lockstep with its allies or be prepared to be on the wrong side of a trade war.
If we don't have tariffs, then things can come into our country, and then they could potentially go into the United States and circumvent their own tariff regime.
China has threatened retaliation, something experts say the Canadian government is likely considering as it plots its next move. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
Coming up, bittersweet.
There's just too many lines of evidence that cause concern.
A new warning about popular artificial sweeteners. Plus, a fashion first in St. John's. A third person has been arrested in Vienna, Austria, in connection to a foiled attack on the now canceled Taylor Swift concerts. An 18-year-old has been taken into custody on Thursday after allegedly being in contact with the main suspect, a 19-year-old man. He and a 17-year-old were arrested Tuesday. Investigators say the plot appears to have been inspired by the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. Bomb-making materials were located at one of the suspects' homes. It's alleged another confessed to planning to kill as many people as possible outside the concert venue. 3 sold-out Taylor Swift shows set for this week were canceled. A new warning tonight about a popular sugar-free alternative found in many drinks and foods. Researchers in the U.S. have found links to an increased risk of heart attack and stroke. CTV's Alison Bamford on the growing concerns around artificial sweeteners.
A choice many of us face at the store. Do we opt for sugar-free products?
If the choice put in front of you is whether you should have a regular soda or a diet soda, the best choice is to drink water.
A new study from the Cleveland Clinic adds to existing evidence that the popular artificial sweetener erythritol might be linked to increased blood clots. 10 participants were given 30 grams of erythritol. Another 10 consumed the same amount of regular sugar. Researchers noting a significant increase in blood clot risk in those who drank the erythritol, but no change in those who had the sugar.
There's been hidden risk here that we never appreciated.
Erythritol is found naturally in some fruits and in our bodies in small levels, but higher amounts are often used in sugar-free sodas, ice cream, baked goods, and stevia products.
I many times have recommended artificial sweeteners to my patients, but I've stopped doing that. I'm now telling them avoid artificial sweeteners entirely because there's just too many lines of evidence that cause concern.
Last year, the World Health Organization released new guidelines saying non-sugar sweeteners do not help with long-term weight control and pose an increased risk to chronic diseases. Health Canada allows erythritol in several products, and it's generally recognized as safe in the US and Europe.
I'm not convinced they're better for you than regular sugar, but I'm not convinced that they're actually dangerous either.
This research is preliminary, and doctors say consumers should interpret it with caution. This is a small study, and larger, longer-term studies are needed to better understand the true effects of artificial sweeteners. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
Still ahead, the story behind the bell. A Paris tradition scores a historic home after the games. A new tradition has emerged for gold medal winners on the track at the Olympics. Champions get to ring a victory bell that will hold a very special place in Paris after the Games. CTV's Jamia Bushman has more from the City of Lights.
The marriage of something old and something new at the Paris Games includes a bell. Athletes landing gold at the Stade de France get a chance to ring a victory bell. Some with characteristic enthusiasm like sprinter Noah Lyles. Some draped in the maple leaf like hammer throw champion Ethan Katzberg. The bell, made in Normandy, is engraved with the inscription Paris 2024. Once the Olympics wrap up, it will be hoisted into one of the bell towers of the Notre Dame Cathedral. Though they won't get to ring it, it's a concept these Canadian fans love. They're in Paris after winning a spot in the mass participation marathon tomorrow night.
And then to know it's going to be part of history in the city, and they can come back with grandchildren one day and go, that bell, I rang that at the Olympics. I think that's just, it makes it more of a legacy for the athletes who get to do it.
The history of this iconic monument was almost relegated to history books on April 15, 2019. A devastating fire swept through Notre Dame. Images of flames engulfing this cornerstone of the Paris landscape shocked Parisians and the world.
Un choc.
I thought it would be the end for Notre Dame, said this witness on the 5th anniversary of the fire in April. 400 firefighters managed to save some of the building, though much of the wooden roof caved in and the spire collapsed. Painstaking work has been underway since.
C'est de l'ancien qu'on fait quelque chose de nouveau.
It's doing something new with something old, said Rector Olivier Ribadeau-Dumas in May. Symbolically, it means for me that nothing is ever really lost. Thanks to the convictions of many and the work of an enormous amount of people, this cathedral can reopen. That grand reopening is expected to be on December 8th. And at that time, the bell that is now in the Stade de France will be part of a new page of history for Notre Dame. You saw the bell, they're ringing.
Yes, every day.
It's going to be installed here after
the
Olympics.
Oh, that's crazy. So emotional. Nice. That's so nice. Very nice, really.
Organizers say the sound of victories will ring out across Paris long after the games are gone. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Paris.
After the break, a focus on fashion. Heavyweights bring international experience to the East Coast. Finally for us tonight, style and design taking center stage in St. John's. The city is hosting its first ever Fashion Week, a chance to put local artists and models on the map. CTV's Garrett Berry has the story.
Last-minute preparations and alterations. Organizers say a burst of creative energy has focused in St. John's.
I've actually done a lot of traveling to different cities like Toronto and Los Angeles, and seeing, the social movements that are happening there, the fashion events, and just being inspired by that and thinking, why can't we do something like that at home?
An idea conceived in January by a trio of media professionals has arrived in August. 4 ticketed shows and more events throughout the week. It's a chance for fashion heavyweights with experience in international shows to share their knowledge closer to home.
So many creative arts. It's, it's like creative people per square inch here is much higher than anywhere else in the country, I'd argue.
Maybe this is an event whose time has come. Shows have been selling out all week.
Every night has been sold out, so people are hungry for it and they want to see it. So we're just giving them what they want and a lot of it.
Tonight, an Indigenous fashion show. Organizers say Indigenous designers and models are finally getting their shot.
We've kind of hit a moment where people are paying attention and the talent is there. So having the space for them to showcase their designs and share that with the community and the rest of the world, I think it's really important.
The events will run until Sunday, but organizers are already pretty confident that with the demand they've seen, they can organize another Fashion Week next year. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
That is our newscast for this Friday night. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. John Ehrlichman is here tomorrow. Good night.